And of course it was good. We had a photo shoot done with Ten10 then in a studio in Port Talbot. We brought Ten10 down to Port Talbot, mad as hell. And but then we had all of our geese then modelled by Ten10. So initially then that people's eyes is like, that's Ten10. He's been off the scene for 10 years.
Some man, they wanna chat shit till I knock 'em out like I'm Jack Shaw. Rolls hat, rolls back, my flow sharp like a hacksaw.
Right, we are back with the Tanked Up Podcast 2.0. Really interesting one today. Two of the guys that have invested hugely with their time and their money into the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu circuit in not just Wales or UK but worldwide now. We got Gareth Dummer and Lee Jones of Tatami. Welcome, boys. We've been trying to get you here for a few weeks, but Lee was a bit inconsiderate. That operation, then it went wrong, and we've had to drag it out a couple of weeks. But thank you for coming up, boys. We good?
Thanks for having us here. Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
We wanted to do one because I think it's I think a lot of people take the brand for granted a little bit. Some of the new school guys, do you know what I mean? Think, it's always been a bit. I remember because me and Gareth have been on a scene pretty much from the same sort of time. I think when the early 2000s, late 90s. Yeah. Like I remember you boys being outside events with selling stuff out your boot and then a little stall. I'm right tonight, you know.
Yeah, correct.
Well, no, it was all legit. Right? There was no boot stuff going on.
All cash only.
Yeah.
But just to see the growth of the business. Like I don't know the figures, but you've got to be top 3 in the world now, have you?
Yeah,
with regard to the brand.
Top 1, probably.
Top 1, I'd have thought as well.
It depends how you look at things. There's lots of there's companies in America do more wholesale than we are. But we class ourselves as the biggest jiu-jitsu brand in the world from volume, turnover. That's arguable. With some other brands might argue against that, but we'll class ourselves as the number one.
We talk about brands like Venom and things which do some jiu-jitsu, but we consider them to be an MMA brand. We'll do a little bit of jiu-jitsu product. So in terms of us being out and out, because we do some MMA product as well, of course. So, but we don't consider it an MMA brand. So in terms of like Venom, of course, clearly they're a much bigger company. But in terms of out and out jiu-jitsu brand, because we know a lot of company owners, so we kind of know where they are and where they sit, and there's ways of finding out online of who's doing so well. Because we're a bit nosy, we want to see how well we do. Blow smoke up our own asses.
It's important to keep your eye on the competition and the market and what people do. Let's start at the beginning, boys. So. How did you boys meet? How did you come up with the idea and how did it start? And just talk about the journey from here to there.
Baited me. I always tell a story because he baited me. For those who don't know, I had a nasty accident in the steel industry in 2001. So I was touch and go for life and things for a long time. So I come about, I was a little bit, I was shaken up. So there was no sport for me ever. I did judo when I was younger, but didn't do a lot of martial arts when I was older. But I loved martial arts. Judo mainly was my thing, and of course the UFC came out. I was watching that after my bump in 2001. So I was jiu-jitsu. Gutted I can't do it. They broke my back in a couple of places, God knows what. Gutted I can't get into that. But all my kids were there, so by proxy I'll push them into it. They were doing karate and they got a bit bored of it. So I looking for jiu-jitsu clubs in our town in Port Talbot, and the only one I could find was this small tiny little club with a guy I knew from many years ago who was Gareth's instructor, and he was mainly traditional jiu-jitsu. So we went down. Gareth was a young lad, a young blue belt at 20-something years of age, 22 years of age. So took my kids down there, of course, got to know Gar and everything, and we went over to Lisbon for one of the Euro trips. We took the families over and all the wives and kids and things and what have you, and we went over there on the plane on the way back. Gareth baited me with, I got this idea for a jiu-jitsu plan. I'd love to do a bit of a jiu-jitsu plan. I said, go for it, Gar. You want to stop? No, he said, I haven't really got any money to put into it. All right, okay. I said, I know he's like, chewing on me like he's rubbing my leg nicely again. I said, okay. I said, go on. I said, I've been looking for something to invest in and get off the ground, and why not? And all these years ago, I was always, why wasn't I that guy who was in on the ground level of a lot of things? I know a guy from Port Talbot who was one of the first guys in Herbalife in the UK. Yeah. I was like, oh, wow, and he became with a fortune. I go, why wasn't I that guy, that lucky guy going in? And I thought, actually, this could be one of the things, because Jiu-Jitsu, as you know, was relatively young back in 2008, 2007, 2008, when I first met Gareth. It was very small. So that was it. So the rest is kind of history then. I still put some money in, and plan was for me to put some money in, get it running, and do that guy, you do it. I'm just going to sit back and retire now after my accident. But it grew so quick and it grew so much. It was just, but it was fun, wasn't it, guy?
He does sit back now, though. It does sit back now.
Was there any sort of times early on, maybe when you first started up, 6-12 months in, where you thought, is this going to take off the ground?
Well,
what have we got to do? Or did it kind of just...
it was a weird one. We just brought in, some... I think the biggest thing that separated Tatami and us all, you'll remember back then, brands were popping up left, right and centre. And there's new brand all the time. And we've seen lots of brands come and go over the years. And I think what changed Tatami was I came from a retail background. So, I worked in retail all my life, managing stores and area manager for businesses. So I think what Tatami was everybody came into the scene at that time with very good designs. Everybody was a designer. They'd done really cool products, but they couldn't sell it. They weren't retailers. So when we came into the scene, potentially some of our designs weren't as good as everything else, but we came in with an idea of you've got to have stock. You've got to be able to get it to people. So I think that gave us a lot of momentum at the start of not just designs, but actually having a retail head on. Rather than just buying in one rash guard and whatever, we came in with a range straight away. Men's, ladies, kids from the off immediately. So that did separate us then. You weren't just coming to a website with one product. I think initially we had 50 products from the outlets straight away. Belts, skis, everything.
2 of each, mind.
Yeah. But
so what year did it start? What was the year?
We got 2009 established on our products. I always chastise him about that because, yes, we didn't sell our first gi till 2009, but the seed was sown in 2008. Is when we were in Lisbon in January 2008. And then we were hoping to get our first delivery in time for Christmas 2008, but the factories, I need the same today, this is the factory we use. We didn't get our delivery till 2009. So, it's arguable that it's 2009, which is on our products established.
But the idea was earlier.
But what Tank said about what the changing point was it's a funny story, and this is going to make everybody laugh, but it was... I think it was must have been 2009. It was 2009, definitely. And we were a couple of months in, and I'm working and I'm trying to do designs in the evening. And we took on a little warehouse, Unit 38, we call it. We still got it. We've never given it back. It's empty. It's full of Lee's furniture, my furniture, but it's quite iconic to us. So we've never given this little unit back. But we were renting Lee's mate's spare bedroom out, Fraser's bedroom. And I always remember we had to go to London Fight Factory one day to see Machina to get some kit, and we couldn't get in there because Fraser had met a girl the night before, locked the doors, and we couldn't get the kit out.
We had a key, but we just couldn't get in. I told him, don't leave the key in the door. Young girl, Carlton Club in Port Talbot, Fraser's back, Saturday morning, Machina, sorry mate, we can't come up to make this deal.
Fraser's not married now, is he?
No, he's not, no. He's got a girl, but he's got it.
So we couldn't get the kit out, so Lee was like, right, that's it, we're getting a unit, we can't do this. We got this little, and again, the rent is very, very minimal, but back then everything was a risk. Taking on a unit and bills and everything.
When you're saying so the seed was sown January 2009, we didn't actually get anything sold 2009. So what was the process in that 12 months? Was it finding the right material, the right supplier, the right designs, or was it a case of
Talk us through that.
We went from the January trip to Lisbon 2008. We went for months and months, probably till the summertime, where we kind of let it go, and then he got back in touch with me and said, I've seen him all the time. What about this gi thing? So we didn't probably revisit it until the summer of 2008. So we kind of let it go about 5 or 6 months. And then
I think we quite quickly then got the designs done, got the orders in. Lee paid for the orders. We got the company set up and everything then. And
my fans doing it, man. It's
better work,
Western Union, them as well, and the money. That was great.
Oh, nothing worse than a Western Union when they bounce it back and think, what's going on?
It was apart from that, we were just waiting for the stock to come in. But I think the turning point was, like I said, we were doing, for the first couple of months, Lee was down there packing whatever orders we had in the day, the handful of orders, and I was working in the night. But in training one night, Fionn Davis, she was 14 that time, broke my arm in training. So we were doing training, she threw me because judo, and I put my arm to stop the throw, and I broke my arm in 2 places. So I was off sick got paid sick for like 4 or 5 weeks or whatever. I was off on the arm, so I was down with Lee every day, but he broke an arm in the wing like that. And we grew the company 1,000% in 4 weeks just by having that 2 of us there, back on the old EFN forum, trying to get the SFUK for getting in there, getting banned straight away because the admins, Simon Hayes, all those guys out straight away, banned. You can't put adverts on. But we try and sneak a few little adverts in here.
Fasher, who were a brand, still are a brand. Of course, we were kind of like neck and neck with Fascia, which of course is...
and lots of other brands as well. Black Eagle was around at that time as well.
Remember, you were sponsored by Black Eagle. Black Eagle.
Black Eagle when I was about 15.
Yeah. So
hey, that aged well, or that arm break off Fionn, obviously at the time.
it was alright. You know,
Okay,
it
arm
was
break by a
alright.
14-year-old girl, it doesn't sound so good.
Yeah.
But 10 years down the line,
So we scaled the business massively then. So I came to Lee and I said, right, am I going back? I didn't go back. So that was
it.
then.
You
So
just
that
hit the
was
road running.
Well, I worked part-time for a
Yeah.
while then, just because, you know, I had
Well, you
liabilities.
go back over, I think you were doing a couple of basic website designs.
Yeah, I was, but
I
I sold everything.
Moved back
then,
with Mam?
moved back to Mam for a bit, or my ex-partner or whatever. And that was it. I worked part-time for a while then, but that was we could see the scale initially of having two people there.
Made a big difference.
Just going for it.
Constantly pounding it.
Yeah.
With them, so like you've got the unit, you've got the website set up, you've got designers in place, you've got suppliers. Yeah, you do all the designs, Gareth?
I still do a lot of them.
Still up it, yeah.
It was all him then.
Yeah. So you've got that up and off you've gone. You've took your first sale, say then early 2009. How far down the road was it before you started turning a profit and you bust? Because obviously any new startup business is a gamble, as you said, is a risk.
14 months.
14 months. That's when you started.
Take a penny back for 14 months.
And then did it start snowballing from then, or have you got a certain point where you can go, this was a year where we exploded?
Tenere came back on the scene.
Yeah.
So that was must have been, I got to pull a number on my head now.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
It was probably about, I can't remember, the guys remind me, but Tenere came back on the scene in around about 2011, something like that. And I was training in London Fight Factory quite a lot then with Machina, Eduardo Azevedo, Monstro, those guys. I was in London quite a lot then. And Tenere had been missing for years. You know, iconic TT, you know, him and Tellez, iconic. And he went missing. And he came back to London, was living with Machina in the back of the old London Fight Factory. Pedro Bagmova. But Tenere was living in the back of Old Hanbury Street in the old London Fight Factory off Brick Lane. And so Pedro brought him down to Sophia Gardens for a seminar. I remember saying to Lee, let's get some kit on him. So I drove to London straight away, and Tenere was very kind and allowed us to. He wore the kit for ages, took photographs of him, but we hired a guy, Dan Eat Films in London, to do a documentary, Tenere Return of a Champion. And we filmed this documentary in London. It's still there, so it's got lots of views now. But we done this documentary, and all of a sudden, bang, that documentary went out. On the Monday afterwards, MMA Warehouse, Budo Videos are mailing us, asking us for a price list, wholesale of the kit. As soon as Budo Videos got it, then MMA Warehouse are messaging us, everything else. So that was like a turning point of...
Yeah, what date was that again, Gar?
Oh, that must have been about 2011, something like that, 2012, something like that.
If you remember the Budo Videos, right, was that Wagon was in touch with the Fork boys. And they knew, how you doing, Mark? They knew Jake in Budo Videos, and they said, I'm sure we can get you products. We struck a deal, not the best business deal we'd ever, I won't go into the ins and outs of it, but not the best business deal we ever done with anybody. But we struck a deal with Jake through Wagon emailing in his house in Treorchy, through the Fork boys, bouncing all over the world. This is bloody world business.
So we've always been close with it. We're obviously Wagons, we're a very close friend of ours, a Polaris, referee and judge, we're very close, same team as well. So, you know, thanks, Wag.
Yeah, go back. Budo took our stuff on to sell. But of course, as soon as within the first week of our products being in Budo Videos, MMA Warehouse, who were huge at the time, and what was Aaron's place?
BJHQ, and lots of other ones as well, just popped up. They all come
out the woodwork and shit, what's this? What Jake's got this, who are these guys? And before you know it, then it became a presence. And
of course, it was going to be a photo shoot done with Tenere then in a studio in Port Talbot. We brought Tenere down to Port Talbot, mad as hell. But then we had all of our geese then modelled by Tenere. So initially, then that people's eyes is like, that's Tenere. He's been off the scene for 10 years. You know, it was...
It suited them because he was a face as command. The guys who don't... You ask anybody now who's been doing Jiu-Jitsu for 5, 6, 7 years, they won't know Tenere is or who he was. Or, you know,
back then, he was massive.
Oh, yeah, back then he was huge.
Now, who would you pull in as a face? I don't know.
It's like Marcelo Garcia coming back the other day. You know, it was that type of, iconic.
To be fair with Terry, he got, it's out there, isn't it? He went through a real troublesome time in his personal life. And it's probably a bit of a perfect storm. He's come back probably on a bit of a low ebb.
Yeah.
You guys have shown a bit of kindness. Do you want some kit? We'll support you. he's repaid a favour, come down.
Yep.
Because even though he was at a very low ebb and a very low point of his life, as you boys have said, he was still an icon of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu circuit. He was one of the greatest.
Iconic videos ever. If anybody's new into the sport, go onto YouTube, put Terere in and look at the Mujao's early 2000s. Just iconic. You know, the whoop Terere, whoop Terere. It's just iconic.
Terere.
That's it, you know. So that was a massive turning point for us, and after that then it snowballs. Once the big American brand outlets have got, I mean, they've all gone now pretty much. I mean, the dynamic has completely changed now. Back then it was all wholesalers, BrazilianFightwear.com and all these places. You know,
a lot of it to America.
Now everything's changed with a direct-to-consumer business model. Is
the majority of your business direct now rather than
direct now? Apart from academies and whatever.
How fast did it go from the two of you working in the warehouse to I think we better get some staff on board to keep?
Person was Tom Wood.
Yeah, Tom.
So if you listen to this,
Sheeran looked like yes, yeah.
Tom Wood. Well, I don't know. That was quite early on, like a year in. We took
that was in Unit 38 before we moved. So it started off actually, you know, when Terere came on board and the order started coming, we need to take somebody on, you know. And then, yes, we needed to take a designer on, another designer. I can't remember. I think we had two designers and one warehouse guy. But it was, we were always playing catch up with staff. We were always, me and Gareth were back in the warehouse, stuffing bags and boxes and things like that. And we were never forward thinking enough. Not forward thinking, but we are growing at such a rate of knots now. How are we going to get more stock? And we need money. And I got to a point where I said, look, I'm not putting any more money in. It's got to be self-sufficient now. Even though I knew it was all going to come back, but we don't need to. We need to start saying, right, whatever's in the bank can pay for the next order. Make our order 50% bigger, and we need more staff. But we take a member of staff on. We've grown again within a month or two. So we need another 50%.
I think for the first decade, it was always playing catch up. Just you'd think we've always been very good at reinvestment, like always. You know, everything gets reinvested back in. So, but we'd increase the gi order by 50%. It wasn't. It would sell. You know what I mean? So it was always in our mind how
American companies were taking them up.
it was always in our mind how far does this actually push, you know. So.
How many staff have you got now?
Up until recently we had 33, but I think one or two are moving on or have moved on.
It's about 30. It's about 30.
It fluctuates between 29 and 30, 40.
Everything based in Port Talbot now?
Everything's in Port Talbot, everything's based in Port Talbot,
One question we did skip, the name.
So
how did we come up with the name?
I'd
imagine.
That was a working name.
Actually, the one of the names initially I had in 2006 was Venom, but not with an O. Do you know what I mean? You know, quickly seen them flash up and go, right, park that one. But I think we were just brainstorming one day, and I've always, we were looking at, different words of what do we train on, what actually do. So it came up as Tatami.
We called it Tatami now. It wasn't Tatami, we called it Tatami because it was like a working name, and we'd have a look for a full-time name, and we went round, you looking at different things, you know what I mean, different moves, positions, everything, and they all sounded a little bit corny and cheesy, they did, and it was like, and we went round and round, and in the end we said, look, we got to send these designs off, we got to come up with them, so Tatami it is, and it works,
and we can't imagine it being anything else, it like, for someone like me, it feels like you've been around forever, do you know what I mean, and anybody new to the sport, they're going to think you've been around forever anyway.
Yeah, it's now, I got kids in comps who have, they're in their 20s now, brown belts, black belts, and their first gi was a tatami gi, and it's still there. So it was quite not weird for me, but for some people, 15 years in, a lot of people are black belts, and they started off in a tatami gi, and now we're still there. So it's a bit like for us, I'm assuming the Brazilian brands, Atama has always been there, always been there.
Yeah. What was the other Brazilian brand? MMA?
There was loads. I was quite a...
We own that.
You own that, yeah. That was my first...
MMA gear.
That was I had a blue one, my first Jiu Jitsu gear.
Yeah, we bought...
Doing ourselves an injustice, but one of the other brands now, currently, one of our competitors, the guy used to own that.
Right.
And we bought them as a package.
Well, we bought, do you remember back in the day, ML Sports League?
It's like the website, wasn't it?
Yeah,
The
yeah. So
MMA
they would
Universe.
have the like the grappling strike things going on, but it was the ML Sports League. More about that after. I had some
Combat Sports
bad-
League, wasn't it?
Combat Sports League, and Ben and the guys there, and they would do the shows up in, can't remember where it was it Hereford Way? Hereford Way, and they had Colossus and people like that on, and people like that on it.
The original ones were Bath.
Bath, okay.
Bath, because I remember my first event. I remember meeting you for the first
Yeah,
time,
that's right, yeah.
and that would have been. Oh, we're all over.
It's got to be 2002, 2-1.
1 or 2 it would have
Yeah,
been definitely.
I think it was.
I remember when I went, used to go and watch the boys down the gym fight, like Martin and Jack when they were about 17.
Yeah.
That was in Hereford. They used to lose
Yeah.
a little side of the sport. So
Well, but my cousin
BJJ.
Spencer was fun,
Yeah.
and he was prolific on the scene. I think he had 120 amateur fights, with the no headshot stuff, just caning everybody in the ribs. That's it.
I was just outside the nightclub.
Yeah,
It was in Bath originally, because me and Simon Horner would jump in the car. We'd put our AC/DC album,
Yeah,
CD
yeah.
in, right? And we were thinking we were off the war. We were off to have a headshot.
Yeah.
Machine guys,
Well, I
right?
was talking
But
to-
you know, in our mind,
yeah.
was like, we're off the war now, right? We're going to smash everybody in this building, right? Go in and we come home thinking like, I don't know,
Yeah.
you vandally
Yeah.
silver on the way back, on the car music going. But it was great.
Yeah.
It was great times, wasn't it?
talking to Jeff Lawson the other day, because obviously he came up in a similar scene, but obviously with Ultimate Fighter House he progressed to another level, and he's phenomenal. But we were laughing the other day about the warm-ups you'd have in his leisure centre, just 2 pads, punch, sprawl, that was it, in, done. But it's just where I was going with that was ML Sports League, that company. I think, what was the name of their site? I can't remember what it was. MMA something.
MMA Universe.
Every universe, yeah,
They used to
universe.
keep all the records of the amateur.
That's right,
headshots
they
as
did,
well.
that's right. But they had the brands.
Dale
Rogue,
was the
Dale,
owner.
that's it, Dale. And it was Ben. I think it was Ben. Was
Dale
it
and
Ben?
Ben, but Dale used to be the front because he'd done
Yeah.
the big show they'd done as well.
I can't remember what that was called. I was trying to think, because Colossus was on it. Lots of Kevin O'Hagan's boys would be on it from back then.
There's loads of lads. Kevin
Yeah.
O'Hagan fought. What's the guy's name?
Because their logo was the little like a globe or
Yeah,
a ball,
that's it,
wasn't it?
that's
Sort
it,
of
it
thing.
was MMA.
But anyway, they were selling all brands back then. They owned Viper. I think we all had Viper gloves and shin pads. Rogues.
Rogue was
gloves.
The thinnest gloves in history. They were.
There was also a glove there called Harbingers.
With the
And
big
they had
straps and the thumb in,
they
yeah.
had a metal bar through the middle.
That's it,
They got
that's it.
banned in the
Yeah,
end
they had a metal bar,
because
yeah,
people
yeah.
were getting knocked out everywhere because you had a metal bar in the glove. So, but anyway, an MMA gear. But a couple of years ago, those brands came up for sale, so we bought them. We own all those brands. We've never done anything with them. They're sitting there
We
somewhere.
did rekindle Rogue, but we were going to do it as a rugby football kits, that kind of thing. And it wasn't going to be an MMA brand, so we had the new logo and things like that. And we just let it go, but so we kind of own them. And like I say, one of our competitors, one of our competitor Jiu Jitsu brands, it was his first brand, and we would have been lovely just to rekindle that just to make a go of it.
When we were first doing the no headshot circuit back in the early 2000s, everybody had Rogue gloves.
Yeah,
They're like Century and
Yeah,
Rogue. used to
and
be-
Viper. I had Viper shin pads. I like my Viper shin
You know,
pads.
just for you new guys on the scene today listening, you don't know like you are, because like you can go on their website now, bump, order it, it's with you within 24 hours, 48 hours max. When we were doing it, I'd have to like buy something from America,
Yeah,
sprawl, or, you know, you were lucky enough,
Yeah.
certain things would be on that MMA Universe site, but you'd be paying twice the price
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
get in America.
Well,
for.
but back
And you'd be
when.
gambling whether it arrived, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, back when you said about how we first started, I remember one of the conversations around setting Tatami up, because I was a bit of a flash guy back then. I was a blue and a purple belt, and I'd be bringing things in from Brazilian fight. I'd have like a vitamins and minerals red gi, and I had the crew guns one with the embroidery down the sleeve, and we were teaching these kids in Tonmawr Leisure Centre, which is quite a like a poor community or whatever, teaching kids, and all the kids would have there is blitz, judo gis or whatever. And I remember Christmas time, the year before we started, the parents would come up to us and they'd go, "Oh, the kid really wants a gi like that camouflage gi you got there with a red collar. Where can we get one from?" And I'd be like, "Well, that's 150 quid imported from Brazil." It was ridiculous. And you see how disappointed the kids were they couldn't have access to things like that. So it was another boot for us to go, hang on, there was UK brands around. I won't badmouth any brands back then, but there wasn't that variety in the UK or Europe at that time,
and
you
they
know.
were still expensive as well, mate. Because like I said, you'll know, guys, you were paid $200, $230 for a gi from the US or Brazil. It could take 6-7
But I remember, you know,
if you
when we first designed our gis, things have changed now. I know Jiu Jitsu's gone in some respects. The products have gone now quite subdued and classical looking. Back then, it was how many patches could you put on a gi? And I remember designing the first gi with Lee, and we had a patch back. And we were like, should we get more patches? Yeah, put more patches on. Put more patches on.
Recreated the Enster Nui gi, remember? The Enster Pride gi, we did that, and that was bloody.
One thing I got to give you kudos for is that what you just touched on, you have made it affordable. Yeah. Like, you know, I've had many discussions over the years with different high-level instructors about, like, becoming a Gracie Bar, but then, you know, we like you just said, no, we're poor area. We live in Blaenau Gwent, statistically the second poorest area in the UK, right?
He loves a statistic.
I do love a statistic. Because if I got a father and 2 kids, how do I say to them, right, you're going to invest 360 quid into gis? Yeah. You know, where I give them your website, I give them our discount code, and they're walking away 40-50 quid with a gi that's going to last them years. You know, where, as you rightly said, anything before you'd have to order, it was you're talking 100 quid plus renew.
And also convenience, I think, is a big thing. And like
you
said,
I think so, you need a
new, if your gi breaks and you need a new one to train on Wednesday and it's Monday, you can order one from you lot and have it there by Wednesday. If you want one from Brazil or America back, you're talking 6-7 weeks.
We don't advertise it, but if you ordered probably before 3-4 o'clock today, you get it tomorrow before you go train tomorrow night. So, and that was the big thing for us about making things affordable. And I would go as far as to say we single-handedly brought the price of gis down in the UK because there was no need for them to be that much without being greedy.
But potentially around the world, do you know what I mean?
You know. And we were just a couple of decent Welsh, we play on the Welshness thing, and just 2 nice guys from Wales, being kind, being tidy, looking after academies, trying to do good deals for academies, because that's the lifeblood of the sport. And that's what it was, and it was, you know, they don't need to be this much, you can still make a profit, and we can have a healthy living ourselves, and we can do good for the community. So the stuff you give back is...
You boys play it down a bit, but I know for well, because I've known you for a long time, I know what you give back to the sport, you know. Just me personally, I remember when I set up the system with the kids in school, you know, if I don't speak with you, I speak with Ty, sent me hundreds of pounds worth of kit for these kids that are vulnerable, that have got no money in the house. They are training with me every Thursday now. I remember when we needed focus mitts and gloves, you boys pretty much just give it me, do you know what I mean? Not just that, the athletes, the sponsorship you do, just, you know, with domestic level, you know, like I understand you doing the world class level because you're going to get a bit back, but you're not really getting a lot back by investing into the grassroots stuff, apart from your brand is out there. But you know, it ain't like you're trying to build a brand now, boys. You're established, as you said, you're probably number 1 in the world. But you know, hats off to you. You do give a lot back to the community, and I think that goes under the radar a little bit because you're not the most vocal boys in the world. Do you know what I mean? And you know, I think it should be put out there just how good you are to the community.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you saying that, but it's just all about being humble. And I think maybe this is why we've gone as far as we have. And still further to go, because if you be humble about it and be nice and do things correctly, be good at business, but be humble as well and be nice and, you know, look after people. And we've always been about that. There's some people that are going to take the piss in the life, but you know, you just got to ride those punches. But there's no reason why we you know, the bits we give back, we like to feel that we get back from the community.
Do you know when I knew you'd made it? When Gilbert Burns came up to me at a UFC event and went, you know Gareth? You know Gareth?
That's mad you just said that. I was literally just going to ask, who were some of the biggest names? I remember being in Brazil, Corin Marshman, I got on a lift and Gilbert Burns was in there with a tatami top on. And I had a time, and he looked at me and he went, Gareth? And I was like, yeah, I know Gareth. And we started chatting, and I remember thinking, fucking hell, they're sponsoring Gilbert Burns now. They must really be taking... I would have been 2017.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
What are some of the bigger names in the jiu-jitsu world? Because you go... who's the girl now?
Helena. She's phenomenal.
She's unbelievable.
So she's actually... Can I plug it? She's doing a seminar in Nails Fight Center. She's doing a seminar in Nails. So she's obviously the captain of Polaris. We can talk about Polaris in a minute. I think that's quite important for our story as well. But she's obviously captain of Team North America in Polaris, June 28th in Swansea Arena. Squads. So it's Team Europe, women's versus Team North America women's. Helena is the captain of North America. So she is doing a seminar in Wales.
What day is it?
25th, Wednesday, 25th of June. So, yeah, so that is mad again. I think of that myself, you've been around since me, Kevin, the boys set up, the nails. Before that, it was Pedro Bessa, Port Talbot. You've known Norris for years, to think that, somebody like Helena is going to be in Port Talbot, a little steel town in South Wales.
As well.
She's phenomenal.
How old is she? She's 19.
18 now.
She's just had her black belt,
She is
isn't she?
going to be, I think, the biggest personality of jiu-jitsu ever, male or female. I think she's going.
She's only 18.
18.
I just seen Gordon Ryan when she had a black belt in last week after winning that match, and I seen him do a post basically saying a similar thing, saying that the way she's going, she's going to outdo me, as in him, by 100 times, especially because of her age and how willing she is to learn.
Yeah, but I mean, we got, other people we got then, obviously, apologies if we miss any names, there's so many out there, but obviously Kainan Duarte is one of our top guys. Got to put a mention to Felipe Penna as well. JT, we sponsored JT in the 2000...
Let's be honest, is that now?
Fion, we don't sponsor Fion anymore. We have sponsored her previously. Yeah, she's moved on. She has been there, and she'll be captain in Team Europe as well. So it's Helena on one side, Fion on the other side, which is big. But JT, he was a young kid coming through Lloyd Irvin's in 2011, Nottingham ADCC, and we managed to get some kit on him again through the Fockeye guys and Wagon. Amazingly, I've actually still got the rash guard with a spider on it, which we got. But that was 2011 as well, and that came around at the same time as this Terror documentaries. I think initially you had JT Torres was a massive name on the Grapplers Quest scene and stuff back then, and Terror that he was, he's an American icon. He came through the same as Jeff Glover and all these guys. He's that generation, and JT's still with us now, and he's not going anywhere. He's it's been great.
And what we've done as well, is I said, since we brought Ty on as a CEO, we can cover that in a second. Ty's invested a lot in the future in the youngsters. There's a lot of names I can't remember. Ty uses them all the time, and he names and these guys, these kids, and these youngsters, teenagers, they win in world championships and things. So we're invested in the future, and be fair to Ty, he scours and he sees what's hot and what's not. And so in that respect, obviously, yes, we've got the guys who are current and good now, but also we're looking at young talent coming through. Next gen. And I'm talking kids 10, 11, 12 years of age. We got a lot of those, and they're multiple world champions at their age group and things. So
I wanted to say, well, not only have you put Tatami as a brand worldwide, but you've also got Wales a bit more recognised.
Yeah.
And I last year when Jack fought in Brazil, I went down to the gym and I'm doing the weights. And a guy taps me, he says, "Oh, have you finished by having a look round?" And it's Damien Maya.
Yeah.
And I go, "Yes, mate. Yeah, no problem." And he goes, "Wait, where you from, brother?" I go, "You wouldn't know it." I said, "It's a place called Wales." I said, "It's part of the United."
Yeah.
I fought in Wales, he said.
Yeah.
You know Gareth?
Yeah.
He goes, I fought on the Polaris main event in Newport. And I just thought, it's so surreal. It's surreal.
I see Damien every September, and I spend a lot of time with him in Sardinia. He comes to the summer week in Sardinia, which we sponsor, and Damien has been a fixture there for the last few years, so I spend a lot of time with him.
Do you remember me sending you the photo?
What's that now?
I WhatsApped you the photo of me and Maya. I said, I'm doing some weights with you. But
Yeah.
I said, have a photo, I'll send it over. And you done a little bit of
But again,
weights.
it's mad, Gilbert Burns has been to Newport, ICC in Newport, Damien Maya's ICC in Newport,
Gilbert, we were sponsoring Gilbert when he was fought for the title. We weren't sponsoring him then. When he was supposed to have fought for the title first of all, he caught COVID.
Oh, COVID, that's
and we were his sponsor, so we'd have had a little bit out of that.
Yeah.
And then he jumped a Ruka after that, so we didn't, when he actually fought.
Yeah.
But poor bugger lost, so I mean, so small mercies for us. Take out a small win. But no, and he's a lovely, Gilbert Burns, one of the
he's a legend.
Guys.
Phenomenal.
And his kids are fantastic. And his wife is lovely. They're a lovely, lovely family, really nice people.
Well, actually, there's a good, on the Polaris YouTube right now, we're running through iconic old matches, and his versus Gary Tonon on Polaris is a fantastic high level.
Gary Tonon and Dylan Dennis.
Yeah, it was great.
That was a good crack as well.
So we're running through.
Strauss fight as well, that was an exciting one.
Agazam. Was it Agazam?
AJ Agazam.
Well, the best was Jake Shields and Agazam was the one where they just slapped with each other.
Polaris and that was Tonin, wasn't it? Yeah, that's the same. He's like super.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Ben Henderson and AJ Agazam, and Benson said, I'm gonna charge him off the stage, and he charged him off the stage.
Let's talk a bit about Polaris. Let's go back then. How did that idea come about? What went into setting?
So
us?
we're
it's arguably the premier grappling tournament in the
well,
world.
we were. I was in Lisbon with the Scramble guys. So Matt and Ben.
It was probably that. It was. We discussed. Yeah, you were, because what it was, we went to Lisbon. We sponsored the Euros IBGF for the first time, because there was a couple of companies coming in trying to steal, the trade of us in the UK and Europe. And so we got in touch with the Scramble guys, and we said, look, we're going to go out there. Do you want to just chip in a bit? We'll put a couple of your products up, and so we said, whatever you sell, we give them money for. So, we kind of come together with the boys from Scramble and try and push away these other brands.
But at the same time then, Lee was working, and I just got absolutely drunk on Johnny Walker Black Label.
And he's out there again, loading it up.
So Wagon was there again, actually.
Yeah.
Wagon looked after me that night, put me to bed. Yeah. So we were in the Rodizio. So we're in the Rodizio having meat and whiskey, and me and Lee the year before had an idea about doing our own event. And I found the notepad the other day, Super 16 it was going to be called. And we done a logo, everything, a 16-man tournament in St David's Hall in Cardiff. So we're sitting in Lisbon now with the Scramble guys, and we randomly said about Super 16, and they said, well, we've got an idea for a show as well. And they were like, oh, wow. We were like, should we do it together? Oh, and that's Polaris. That's pretty much what happened then.
So, what date was the first event?
It was 10 years ago, January just gone, so 10 years ago. January the something, 2015, so it's just been 10 years now. But so it took a year after that of building and everything to be able to get there, but that's how Polaris started. It was a meeting in Lisbon again. Lisbon's had a lot of meetings and different things.
We've done a lot of business in Lisbon,
So we that was the start of Polaris. The first one was January 2015 in St David's Hall in Cardiff. Quite an iconic date.
With them then. I think we did about 10 months before we did the next one or something like that. And,
but the first one was just, I couldn't believe the people we brought. No, we had Mike Fowler, we had Tellez, we had Dean Lister on the card, Keenan Cornelius, Michelle Nicolini, Angelica Galvao. You're talking back then, 10 years ago, that you were looking around going, what is going on here? When Nick Brooks, bless him, was passed away now, was referee on those first iconic shows, and it was So
just touching on Nick, I always remember having a conversation with Nick once about Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying to me, I'm telling you, I've been in training with him, he could compete at the highest level in pure grappling. And then Jack sent me a video last week, didn't he?
Yeah.
Of him beating
Ryan Hall.
Oh, okay, wow.
In the gi.
Amazing.
In the gi.
In the absolute
that's one of the conversations I always remember.
Yeah.
We were just talking to him, he said, Nate Diaz, he said he could switch it.
I spoke to Nate outside, I was the ADCC, not the last one before, and he was outside, everybody was around him. And I said to him, Nate, do you fancy coming on at Polaris? Do you want Polaris? And of course he was out there, he was bloody stoned, sitting I was like that, and beans about then, like he does, bless him, I mean. But I said, you do know Polaris, do you? Because I could look into his eyes. Oh, yeah. I said, do you fancy coming on there and fight? Who would fight? Or would you like to fight on Polaris? Yeah. Where's your manager? I speak to your manager, I went to speak to his manager, messaged his manager, but nothing coming back. So he did have a small bit of an interest. So I mean, I don't know whether we should put the team, but get our matchmakers on. Nate would be good. If we can afford him.
I can't imagine it'd be cheap to get on.
No.
That's the thing.
You have to invest some more money.
Yeah.
Worth it.
You never get it back from Polaris, it's not a problem.
But again, but some of the main events were Uriah Faber on the card, Damien Maia,
Well, listen, but you had Aljamain Sterling, right? Yeah. And again, talk about surreal and bringing like
Chris Weidman.
My Twitter's blown up. People saying, Aljamain Sterling's messaged you on Twitter,
Yeah.
And he came and trained with us, didn't he? Twice. And like he done. Do you know what I love about that? He was world champion. Was he still world champion?
He just lost.
Just lost the world title. So he's like one of the most high profile fighters. And he came, jumped in on our session, and just followed the rest of the team as I led the session.
Yeah.
Which, I just thought, there's a man with no ego. There's a man coming thinking, well, let's have a look. There's a different take off these guys. Only Jack, he was brilliant.
The Polaris Open match, so every Friday before Polaris, we run a Polaris Open match and the fighters come down. And I'm amazed that you just, you rock up and you just, Chris Weidman was asking you for a role. You're like, go on then. And you're in the shit. We said this in the last time. So, we were, I can't remember who was there now, one of the UFC guys, and we're all there training, and we said, if somebody rocks up with their name on their UFC shorts, you're in a bit of shit. You know? And they, if they got their name on their shorts, and they say, do you want to roll? Here we go.
That's always true, because I got show on my...
There we are.
All right, I'd be in a bit of shit.
Well, if...
Quickly,
Yeah, go
the upcoming Polaris, so obviously you've got the two
Yeah.
teams, you've got Fion's the one team,
Yeah.
and the Helena's the other. Is there a chance then they could end up having a roll?
Yeah,
or-
definitely, 100%. Could be
So,
first
so
match.
how does, what's the format then? So how does it work?
So there's a team captain. So obviously the captains are Fion and Helena, and they just pick the next person. You don't know who's on next. So
So
There's
for
a lot of
example, if the
tactics.
first two win, then one will get subbed, or
Yeah.
and then they just, is it kind of like a winner stays on then, or is it?
sort of.
Trying to make it, because it's like trying to make it like a team event, not like a
Yeah.
rugby or a game of football. or
So do
something
they all
like
have a
that.
match with another fighter, or is it like this
Well,
Super Fight where winner stays on until the
Yeah.
The basic thing of it is like this. You hope to get. If I get it wrong, you jump in with that. So it's an hour per half, right? So 60 minutes per half. Each individual match is 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Individual match, unless somebody gets subbed. If somebody gets subbed, that person goes off, and then the person stays on. The winner stays on.
Yeah.
And they take the next competitor, and it's another 5 minutes. So you could have been.
I like that format.
Yeah.
It's just great. You can swap out a competitor so many times in a half. Take a time out.
Let's read. I did this one out, if that's all right. No.
Gareth, if you could take over from me, I better tell us what's really happening.
That's what it used to be.
There's lots of changes in the last two squads since then. Like, so it's
I missed the last squads. I was away.
maybe maybe we'll backtrack to that one, because there's quite a lot of idiosyncrasy rules there, right? So we started again on that, and I'll just say, I'll just fluff it over in like an over summary. So yes, two people. It's a 5 minute match. You don't know who you're going to verse. It could also be split on weight, so a smaller person could be versing a bigger person. Creates the excitement, and it's a team event on points. Yeah, 'cause there's lots of other little. I'll just say, if you want to read more detail on the rules on the website, and there's
So
all
it
of
could
it.
work out into them to perhaps meet.
Yes,
you,
it will
or
do.
could even meet at
Yeah.
the end, or whatever.
So-
Another tactics to do with a guy standing up and unzipping their tracksuit tops, something like that.
Yeah.
And then they look in and the captain
Yeah.
says, you get up,
Yeah,
you get up.
What
And
was
then they zip it back up and sit down.
there was a similar one to that one. Was it Quintet? Something
Quintet,
like that. That was a scene,
yeah.
4 different
Yeah,
teams or whatever.
yeah.
So what happens? You say it's 2 60-minute halves.
Yeah.
So what happens if all the fights are done in the first?
So the cycle. So to recap it. So you've got two teams. You don't know who you're going to match until you stand up. So Lee did say just now that somebody could stand up, start taking their hoodie off, all of a sudden another person runs on. So you don't know who you're going to be grappling with.
Yeah.
So it's a points event. So it's either so you win by points or submission, and there's two weight limits. There's a lighter weight and a heavier weight. And that's it. So once a fighter is out, they put a black bib on. They can't be reused until every fighter's gone through.
Right.
So you have a black bib on. So once all your fighters have gone, you can recycle and run back in. But in the last men's one we had a few weeks ago was phenomenal. I mean, like Mateusz Szczecinski is unbelievable. So each team has got sort of like a. They're all phenomenal grapplers, but they've also got each team has got like the one dangerous person. Do you know what I mean? Who can tap somebody quickly? Do you know what I mean? And then get the next one quickly. Do you know what I mean? They're all phenomenal grapplers, but you're like Mateusz is dangerous. In all areas.
It's a good setup though, because like you said, it's like a bit of a wild card fact, because like you said, you might have that guy that can catch it. Is it just a beast catching it quick? But then if he's 4 matches deep and then he comes in, number 5 is a lot bigger.
But what we find is,
what
we find is, this is why the ADCC was so good. It was when Craig Jones tapped Leandro Lowe, RIP. Being back in the ADCC a few years ago. It was. I remember my phone blowing up. This guy from Australia is taking his back and reneged them. All of a sudden, somebody blows up. Outside, if we try and do a super fight of this world champion person versus this up and coming, it doesn't happen. They won't take the risk. But sometimes that's why ADCC is great, because if you want to be in the ADCC, you might be versing this up and coming. It gives these new up and comers a chance to actually make a name and take a scratch. So it's with their squads as well. Maybe the world-class person doesn't have an option, and if there's only one person left on that team, unbibbed, you got to verse that purple or brown belt from wherever, and they're going
And it
to
might be
go
a
for you, you know.
very smaller guy, smallest guy on one team against the biggest
Or
guy.
woman.
Or woman,
Yeah.
I would say non-gender.
It's non-gender.
It is non-gender. It is in Wales, anyway. But no, you know, it's. I mean, one of the best fights we had. What was the last fight we had in Southampton? It was 90 seconds long. Was it Dino? It was the last match of the thing.
I can't remember.
Anyway, it was the smallest guy against the biggest. I can't remember who it was, but it was the smallest guy against the biggest guy. And it was about 90 seconds, and it was like, and it was really super exciting because, you know, one of them needed a submission to win it out, and those kinds of things. You wouldn't happen. You wouldn't see it else.
But that's all we've ever tried to do with Polaris, and that's when we do the rules meeting with the fighters beforehand. It's a weird one because obviously we started the sport in, you know, amateur MMA. We didn't even do Jiu Jitsu really, and then a lot of us got ingrained and indoctrinated into IBJJF. You know, this win by points. Do you know what I mean? And then it's now trying to change the mindset again now of, no, Jiu-Jitsu inherently is not a spectator sport unless you know if you know what's going on. You know all our autisms kick in and you just sort of like engrossed in it. But we're trying to create a spectator sport is hard, and the only way you can do that is, unfortunately, one, size differences, you know, creates a dynamic change, you know. But it is hard to
tweak the rules. We tweaked the rules. The first, 3, 4, even 5 years of Polaris, it was still kind of like
50-minute matches, sub only. You know,
people couldn't get into their heads about they were still trying to pass guard. It's a sub only event, you know what I mean? And people. And because there's so many of those events now, people are kind of getting into it. So the last few years, it is more exciting. We've seen a lot more.
And we have put points back in as well. You know, in certain areas, the Grand Prix and everything.
Is it like the 10-9 system now?
Yeah, 10-9 system now. Yeah. And that's all.
You have judges.
Yes.
That's a recent thing because we feel it would make it more exciting and it gives.
And it's an incentive. If you just do a sub only and there's no winner at the end.
Yeah.
How many fights you ever?
But we've changed that recently as well because.
As long as I don't lose,
yeah,
okay.
But you know, we all of our judging criteria would be confidential, you know, and a guy wouldn't know that he's one round up until the end. But now we're actually we are saying this person's 1 round won. It actually it does incentivize the. Well, you know what it's like when you come, you go back to your corner and Dad says, "Oh, you're 2 rounds down." You know, right? I got 1 chance to win this now. Well, rather than being in the dark. You know, and sometimes when you grappling with somebody, you could think, "Oh, I've done well. I've got back to the top." But have you really? Has he gone for 3 sub attempts on you, and you know, you don't know where you're at?
A lot of talk around the UFC bringing that scoring in about releasing at the end of
the
round.
Yeah.
How many times? we've done it. I've had a fight that would have gone, "You're 2 rounds up at your course." And then we've lost on the judges' scorecards.
And that's why things like, you know, CGI coming up and stuff. It is, you know, this is why me and Lee have always never been, you know. When Tatami went through a period of having potentially not many competitors, that's sometimes not the best either. Sometimes you need a series of shows or companies all, you know, doing different things. Otherwise, you rest on your laurels. Do you know what I mean? So at the minute, we got CGI doing great things, ADCC popping up again soon. So it actually does, you know, it gives you, they done that really well. Okay, it gives you, rather than, otherwise you just replicate the same thing over and over and over again. And so it's just nice to have other companies coming in, changing it up.
I think that's kind of the UFC's problem at the minute, is that they can get away with voting down the cards and not giving us, because they've always known UFC for giving you the fights you wanted, because, you know, they had the risk of Bellator putting on a big show, PFL, Strikeforce. But I think at the minute now, there is no real competitor in the MMA space, so they can get away with International Fight Week, just doing a good main event and a good co-main event. Where they did 2-3 years ago, if we don't pack out our International Fight Week card, we can't charge this much for the tickets. They might just go and watch Bellator down there.
Me and the guys are talking about UFC 12, 13 years ago. Go back to the whole cards. Unbelievable. From bottom up.
The whole appeal of it was boxing shit because you get your main event, which is great, and then a shit card.
I don't follow the UFC much anymore, but no, I think slightly it's too much as well. There's too much to be able to keep it.
We got one of the biggest fights of the year coming up, Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier for the BMF title. But the card is awful. Oh, it's awful. And I don't mean any disrespect to any fighter on there, but what I'm saying is, for a fight of that magnitude, I'd like at least, don't know, pack the undercard with some up-and-coming fighters, non-ranks. But Christ, it was, what did we watch here? There was a numbered card. DDP, Driggers. he and his opponent were the only ranked fighters on the entire card.
Wow.
And like I remember, even the UFC 300 last year it was a brilliant card, stacked with names. But you have people like Luke Thomas and Brendan Sharp saying, "Yes, a great card, but this is a landmark event." It's like, you know, this was just a standard pay-per-view card 2 years ago. You know, before McGregor come about, this would just be a pay-per-view card to be stacked with. Now it's kind of gone on the boxing route. You get your 2 good fights at the end.
It's losing its luster a little bit, I think. You know, it's still worth billions and billions, but I think there is something about it. I think something needs to be
I think it's becoming more now like a basketball, like an NFL, where it's on every week. I'll stay in touch with it, and then every now and then you got the playoff and the Super Bowl. Every now and then you got your International Fight Week. You got your UFC 300.
Baseball, they play something crazy like 180, 190 games a year. Baseball, you know, that's a lot of games.
But back to it, but what you said then about supporting, you know, up and coming fighters. So obviously a few weeks ago we had the Polaris first Uprising show in Ebbowville, quite close to here actually, and you know that's something we're going to push more on the end of this year and next year as well. More grassroots shows, you know.
Have you thought about this team against team element on the grassroots level?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we have.
Individual teams.
Yes.
I think the problem with that is obviously, like you said, is drawing the tickets and the sales.
Yeah,
if you did like a Wales England would be a good show.
Yeah, we thought about that as well. A country squad. We can go to London, do a team event, and it would be phenomenal. You know, Team London Grapple, Team Los Banditos, and whatever. You know, and that would be great. I think sometimes if we'd end up in somewhere, you know, maybe Worcester or something. That's what we're trying to do with this Uprising, is go to areas we don't normally, also where we don't normally go with Polaris. So like we normally gravitate to, we do one in Wales. We actually have got one planned for Scotland, so that's in the works. We go to the south of England, we go to London. The Midlands, tricky. We've been to Manchester in the past and everything. So, but with these Uprisings, we're trying to go to places, like I'm looking at venues in Newcastle, and you know.
And answer to your question, sorry to interrupt, guys. If you've just got one gym against another gym, you're only going to get spectators from two gyms.
So, but we're trying to. But Uprising was great. We had, I think, it was 25 matches on, 50 competitors. But you know, Polaris has got a. We're trying to create a roadmap, you know, a signpost roadmap for fighters. How do you get there? You know, half of the time with Jiu Jitsu shows, it's always just being pluck a name out, you know. And we're trying to say that, right, main card is these people, top of the UK talent, top of Europe talent, top of the world. And then the prelims, normally we're trying to say then, okay, that's the best up-and-coming talent in the gyms, gym instructors, the best competitors they've got, you know, the top guys in their gyms. But what Uprising is for then is the guys trying to, okay, you're a really good purple belt, brown belt, blue belt. Let's get you on a bigger show. Let's put some lights in your eyes as well. You know, a lot of the guys from Nails who have been on in the past, phenomenal grapplers. As soon as there's 600 people watching you and a light in your eye, everything changes.
It's an important part of the apprenticeship. I say this with, you know, you've got to build that. Grappling's no different to MMA when you sport. It's like your interclubs, your grassroots level show, then a British national show.
It builds you up.
Harnessing them nerves. Of course it is.
That's what we're trying to do. So that's what we're trying to do. Just be able to give a signpost of that as well, you know. You know, there's a lot of changes at the minute with all the infrastructure of the shows. So there's been lots of guys on the Uprising, if they're wondering, that really did stand out and were great. And we've definitely got them here. And we're sort of making now like a database or a spreadsheet. So you know, we're trying to make all these 50 fighters that who won, who we marking off. Okay, they didn't win, but they were impressive. That was a close win. So when we actually, what we're trying to do as well is when we move around the country is support fighters from like a 50-mile radius around there. Yeah, we'll bring other people in, you know, like we're flying in, you know, people for the next prelim card because there's such a good person in Wales or that area of where we are. You need to bring somebody in. It's pointless throwing another. But then there's other guys then who will be Wales gym v gym. But then Uprising is going to be, okay, Sheikh, who have you got 3 guys in your gym? Right, let's pull them in. I got 3 guys from this gym in Swansea. Let's see what they can do and give them that little stage plan for it.
Was there any, obviously with Tatami being so big, obviously Polaris now, was there any ever temptation to jump into MMA and give that a go in terms of promoting a show?
No, not really, probably. I mean, even when I was doing amateur MMA back in the day, I didn't like getting punched in the face. So that was it, you know what I mean? And it was, and I think I'd done amateur MMA because that was the only thing. We were all doing traditional jiu-jitsu. I'd be training with people like Kevin O'Hagan and Dave Turner, Jeff Thompson, all the animal days and stuff. And we tried to migrate that into some sort of MMA. When you look back now, it was just windmills and guillotines. That's all it was. You know what I mean? And then obviously jiu-jitsu came along. Then I met my instructor, Pedro. That was 2004. I entered the advanced of it. There was a guy from London, Hodger Brookin, and he used to run the Copa Battetti Cup in Battersea. And I entered the advanced division, got tapped in 20 seconds by Pedro. I've had all my belts from Pedro now. And I think that once we had access to these, Brazilians coming over, things changed. We all fell in love with that.
Changed the landscape of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, completely. And these guys coming over, you can name all of them: Braulio, Pedro, Hodger, all these guys, and that's just a small amount of the names. And my other coaches, Monster, and these guys, they changed the landscape of the sport forever.
But that's the question, man. Going into MMA side of things. Polaris, no. I think Polaris is out and out. It's a grappling event, and that's what, because both our brands, all right, we do a little bit of MMA gear, we do some gloves. Maybe in the future we'll invest a bit more, we do a little bit more of MMA gear. But we're largely grappling brands. Yeah. Tatami and the boys are their own scrambler. We both own Polaris. So there's no temptation to say, let's do an MMA event, or let's become an MMA equipment company. Even though we do sell MMA gear, we still consider ourselves a grappling brand that do a little bit of MMA gear. Yeah. Well, we do the MMA gear well, but it's
probably 99% of what
and I'm just jiu-jitsu through and through. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I've never been the best. Do you know what I mean? I'm half decent. That's through time on the mat more than anything. Do you know what I mean? Never been the best, never wanted to be the best, but still have a love for the sport. Do you know what I mean? Me and Pedro were talking the other day, and I got my 3rd degree black belt now, not because, I'm the best or even high up there from that level. It was just because love of the sport.
And
that's all it is.
And the word I always use, consistency.
Yeah.
You've got to be consistent in this sport. And this is what we see all the time. How many boys you see drop off, disappear for 2 years, and then come back? They're never going to make that black belt level.
No. The guy's commitment. He's run this club for donkey's years and things like that, and that's a level of commitment that, you know what I mean? The amount of times you meet and things, I got to go, guys.
We've all seen it. We've seen guys coming through white belt, and you think, not a hope. And some have now black belts in the gym. So I mean, just through grit. And I think sometimes that's worth more than having natural ability. Sometimes natural ability, they float in and out sometimes now and again, and they quit, they take up something else. But these guys who have actually, and sometimes it actually is the core of that jiu-jitsu, particularly back in those days, maybe more Ross Nichols and these guys, era coming through. A lot of these guys were phenomenal, and they took the jiu-jitsu, the UK jiu-jitsu to the next level. Ross was luckily in my gym in Nails on Monday, and it's unbelievable, the level. But these were the first guys to really put a spotlight. Do you know what I mean? Ollie Geddes, he's having a hard time in the minute, but Ollie Geddes, Ross Nichols, even Dan Strauss, these guys, they put Tom Barlow, they were the first generation to really break through and put a spotlight on British jiu-jitsu. But now there's just much more again coming through now. Owen Jones and Owen Flanagan, these guys they are now world class, and I'm excited about the next level coming through. You must have some kids in your gym coming through. We had a boy come down from Wagons Gym the day, Caius, he's 15, amazing. Just fantastic level of jiu-jitsu, and it's exciting to see that going. It took us a decade. So and the generation of kids coming through, starting at 7, by the time they're 19, they got 12 years.
Well, it's the level of coaching is coaching.
Yes, there is that as well.
I remember 10, 15 or longer, 14, 15 years ago being a grad, and I remember thinking, fuck, I'm half decent. But if you took me at 16 and now put me against some of the 16-year-olds in the kids, they'd sub the piss out of me. And I was competing at 16 against men and winning men. The 16-year-olds in the kids
the sport was so young
that would smoke me at 16 because the sport was so young.
I was a blue belt. When I started the gym in 2008, is it 2007? I was blue belt in 2007, I was blue belt.
Going home, getting your book out, mastering jiu-jitsu, Henzo Gracie, like that.
Yours because YouTube was only just up
Trying to work out what was going on, you know.
Trying to travel as far as I could.
Yeah.
I was going to Broly already.
Well, I'd get
any seminar that was available.
Well, I when I was purple belt, every 2 weeks I'd get the mega bus to London. Often London, so I'd leave. I was working in Macarthur Glen in Bridgend. I'd leave the shop at 3 o'clock, get on the 10 to 4 megabus. I'd be in Victoria for 7, maybe 8 o'clock. Then I go across the Hanbury Street, Fight Factory, train there till 9:10, get the night bus back, sleep on the bus, been work 7. I'd done that every 2 weeks.
In the early days,
So,
he was a Bell was a bus driver. And he
the
bus step. Or he'd reverse the buses out, put the mats down like before.
That's my first ever.
Going back to seminars back in the day, and when would it have been for me? 2003. I remember having the magazines, I can't remember which one it was, and they were advertising a Royce Gracie seminar in Norwich as a phone number, so I ring them. And do you boys remember Steve Cowan?
Yeah. I think he gave Kev Cox his blue belt.
That's Kev Cox's blue belt, So I've rung him and said, there's 4 of us, could we come up for this seminar? I think it was 65 quid, a fortune then, you know, but still. Now, if I brought Royce to my gym, I could sell 200 tickets today. So we drive there. We pull up into this school car park, right? There's handwritten signs like a felt marker. Royce Gracie and an arrow. So it was me, my brother-in-law, went up, me, Chimp, Simon, 3 of us.
And Darryl, wasn't it? Darryl?
No, Shane Redmond.
Shane
Redmond. So 4 of us, funny signs, we walk into this little sports hall on the school grounds, and it's a basketball court. And there's probably enough mats there, I would have said, for like 30 people. I said, boys, this is they've done us, man. They've done us. There's no way Royce Gracie's teaching. Honestly, I don't know why I made it. I thought it was going to be 1,000 people there. There was 28 of us there. And Royce taught for 3 hours. It was mind-blowing, right? And then I went to the next one, and that was a bit bigger. There was probably about 100 people there then, and Kevin Robb was there. And I think they might have even had their blue belts, or they had their stripe there, I can't remember.
But I think their friend was there. I actually had his stag to the weekend, Danny Cubitt.
That's it, big Dan.
I was with him the weekend. It was his stag do the weekend. He's getting married.
He done a favour on the MMA.
He did when he fought Tom Kong Watson on Cage Rage World title years ago. So we were talking about this the other day, because the guys went back up for another Royce Gracie seminar, and Royce didn't even turn up. He was in some guy's thing. But
I use that analogy just to show, like in 2003, where Jiu Jitsu was at in the UK.
It's an indication.
You know, now you could do I don't care, you could do a Royce seminar, and regardless of what you think about his Jiu Jitsu ability, he's still an icon. He's a legend.
100%.
And I'm telling you now, you'd have no hesitation in doing 200 tickets, 150 quid.
Well, look at Rob Taylor's doing Craig Jones.
They've
sold 120 tickets, and he said he's got 50 all on a waiting list. In case of pullouts. I think young Alfie was telling me that someone called up or something and said that, I think you're charging too much, and he said, mate, it's sold out in 8 hours. That was the post. There's 120 tickets gone, and that's like. As big as Craig Jordan's is in the jiu-jitsu world, someone like Royce, obviously going to have MMA guys.
Exactly, and he's iconic.
And going back to the cost, at the end of the day, you've got to cover the cost. These boys are not cheap.
Of course.
You know that.
He ain't coming over for a couple of grand.
I just want to finish on the Polaris side of things. Is there anyone you've not had on that you would love to have on? Competing.
Nate,
Let me tell you, you need 3 times the security because a man's picking fights.
We'd for me, Marcelo Garcia for me.
Would be. Ask him, and he said never say never. This was before he made his comeback.
Is that Gordon Ryan on?
No, we haven't Gordon Ryan on. No.
I think Gordon's finished now.
And I think it's great for Marcelo with he's competed since he came back from.
Yes.
You got to get him on, Dev.
I actually messaged Marcelo when and in fairness, we had a fair
fantastic.
back and forth about it, you know, because I'd obviously experienced it.
I mean, the guys say to me, I'm quite old school. Like, I've always said, I would love to do a Polaris, a Masters Polaris. And I want to have, Leo Vieira on there. I want to have Ricardo Vieira on there. I want to have
Masters 5.
Yeah, we were in for that. But to all those guys when we were coming up, who was just Leo Vieira, Ricardo Vieira, Cobrinia, Marcelo Garcia. I want a show filled with Shaolin, Hobson Moura, these guys just coming in, who were iconic, and just show the new generation of, and the prologues we could build for that, show some of the old footage, and then they're back in, an icons, Polaris icons event would be, I think, be great.
Do you think, and again, just finishing off, I think it was a bit more exciting back in the early days because I think where the technical side has grown and grown. Sometimes, as you boys have said, like you were adjusting the rules to make sure it's exciting, but how many times have we seen a 50-50 guard pull, looking for a leg lock?
I actually think it's gone back better now. So I was having a conversation the other day with some of the guys, and I think that when we first started Polaris, you had the Danaher squad coming through, the Death squad, whatever. Then the Tonnans, the Eddie Wolverines, these guys, and the leg lock game was phenomenal. I think it was very exciting then because these guys would jump in with a top traditional grappler, I'll use that words, catch a leg lock and it'd be done. And people would go nuts, highlight reel. Everybody read that game. So then it became we had years of double guard pulls, trying leg entries, everybody getting out of the leg entries, but they wouldn't do anything else. That was their game. Now, I think we've actually gone back another way now. I now actually feel that people are wrestling more, which is great. I think wrestling's back massively on the agenda. Like the last few Polaris that I've watched them back, there's hardly been any guard pulls. People are now wrestling into position, or at least wrestling into a position where they can attack a leg entry or something. But this whole sitting down, from a wrist grab or something, I think it's gone back a better way. We did have a few years of we'd be sitting on the sidelines going, everybody's false reaping legs, the other one escapes, and the same thing repeats over. That we are now in an exciting way of, especially a lot of the UK grapplers coming through, Owen Jones, Owen Flanagans, these people, where they're actually now are rounding the whole game again completely. So I think the next 2 years is really exciting. From UK Jiu-Jitsu, international Jiu-Jitsu, the show's coming up, pushes everybody forward. And I think grappling's becoming more rounded again. Not everybody's diving on leg locks straight away, I think everything's changing again. It's becoming a more rounded aspect. But before we finish up as well, I just want to, we're talking about the timeline of Tatami. I think a big one we didn't kick on was 4 years ago. Obviously, myself and Lee, we took on a full exec team as well. So, you work with Ty, our CEO, quite a lot. And,
I've never actually met him, but I feel like I've known him years ago.
And that was another massive. So if you put Tatami in timelines 4 years ago when we decided to take on a full executive team with huge retail experience, they run Debenhams for the UK. That was our
what happened, we didn't know if we were going to come back to our business. The colour drained out of our faces, we had no idea. As it turns out, with COVID, we managed to maintain where we stood in the market, and in fact we even grew by about £60,000 in the whole year. We managed to, how we did it, we just turned things around with t-shirts, hoodies and stretchers, and we managed to do a lot of that instead, because we weren't selling any geeks or any fixtures. So when we came out of that, it was like, because nobody knew when we were coming out of it. We were back locked down. So I think it wasn't until 2021 before we realised, actually, we're out of COVID now. Nobody's wearing masks, nobody needs to have jabs, you can travel, everything's fine. And we said, come on, let's go, let's see what we can do, let's go for it. Let's have a look for somebody, and we were looking for a marketing type person, a real high-end marketing person, and we stumbled across this. Our recruiter stumbled across Ty, because these Debenhams had gone under, they lost our game, so it was great for us.
Where's he from, Ty, originally?
Caerphilly. So, but you're missing the point where you wanted to semi-retire as well.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I said, in the early days, I was never meant to have gone back into full-time work. I broke my back and I just didn't have the head for it. And it turned out it was just getting a lot. I wanted to step back,
But it was a great turn of events. So Ty came on board, CEO, runs the business now. I'm more now the creative side, product development. Ty and his exec team, now some of his key players, Rachel, David, Simon, the guys are just brilliant at pushing. They're there from a which is a bit like what Tatami, I said earlier about when we started Tatami, we went in with a retail head on, and I think we've now put that cap on massively again now. It's all now customer first, retail first, and pursuing. So
the management team we got now is like retail on steroids, because they've been doing it. We've been doing it for a number of years, but just Tatami, these guys have been doing it for high end, for Debenhams, and they know what they're doing.
What I love as a gym owner, is that it's that personal touch as well. Is it another brand of your magnitude in the world where I can just ring one of the directors and go, mate, can you help me out? I need this.
And we were always that way,
always been. And even though I don't pester you anymore, I just go straight to Ty. Ty can be on holidays, and he will mess by. Rich, I'm away for 3 days, give me a bell in 3 days and we get it.
Yeah.
If I need something desperate, say, well, I'll message you off. Honestly, I can't.
No, I mean, he's tiresome, and Ty's relationship and his communication with the athletes is absolutely unbelievable. You know, he's working all night, keeping those relationships going, and I think it's paying dividends now in how the brand is now and how we're going to be now in the future as well.
But as I say, in the early days, Gareth and I, we looked after the academies as best we could, because that's the lifeblood. And of course, he was in the academy, always has been.
And I still preach that now as well. You know, we did get rid of, you know, we sort of pulled away from general wholesale about a year ago now, because the world is changing. You know, nobody goes to stores really anymore to buy things. You go direct to the brand.
Everything I buy, and you're pretty much the same, comes to the
you know, you go, so the world is a direct to consumer. Unless Donald Trump has his way, but we won't even go there because that's political.
I got one final question. Do you ever foresee you being at a point where you want to sell this business and retire as he's been?
About last week, wouldn't it?
Or do you think you'll
once a month?
Or is there anything you haven't done yet that you kind of think like that's what we're striving for? Or you just kind of?
I think the USA market was always a big one. I mean, we do a lot, huge business to America. You know, a third of our business goes to America, to the US. Huge business out there. I would like to, you know, envisage a much more business in America, particularly even a permanent, you know, establishment out there or something. Unfortunately, at the minute we can't go political, but the American market at the minute is tricky with the current tariffs going on and what is happening out there is tricky. No, from a tatami point of view, I mean, you know, I think there's definitely a lot more athletes we can take on board. Ty's always in communication with other athletes from other brands. I think there's definitely more names. I think I would like to excited to be able to have on.
The product is a thing. Yes, we could push further into the MMA market. Why not? We trade we got a good trading name, Tatami, as a Jiu Jitsu grappling brand. There's no reason why we can't transfer that across as an MMA brand. Years ago, it was a very big separation between the two. You're either an MMA brand or you're a grappling brand. No, it's not quite so much the same.
Well, I mean, you remember Jiu Jitsu guys have always had a chip on their shoulder. So bad about, you know, if you'd done karate gis, you'd done Jiu Jitsu guys, you were done. You know what I mean? So we had to be in those days very core grappling. You know, if you'd done a judo gi, you know, you weren't cool. You know, you weren't part of the cool crew. But that's now, those days have gone. You know, it's gone.
I'd like to move into perhaps more fitness wear. We do a little small bit of ladies fitness things like that, or gym wear and fitness wear. And maybe even a little more streetwear and things like that. There's no, you know, once you've built the brand, you've started the brand as a grappling brand, there's no reason why you can't and build it and put player on the outside.
Yeah, but what Ty tried to do as well, but after COVID, we had to dip more into leisure wear, and we slightly took our eye off the ball with what do you actually sell, gis and belts. Yeah. You know, and I think, it'd be great to dip into all those things as long as our core is, you know, that we never run out of a white belt, we never run out of a blue belt. That's the first thing, you know.
We had a leisure wear hangover because we had just buying t-shirts and hoodies left and right and sell them just to keep us going through COVID, just to keep our business alive, make sure we had something to come back to. Because when Ty came in, there's how many tens of thousands of
I think we had more t-shirts than next, and that's not even like that's not even that's only
138 styles of t-shirt and about bloody 200 of each of them. I was like,
no, we did have something like 13,000 t-shirts in stock.
Unbelievable. And short and leisure wear hoodies, things like that. Well, now we're trying to get back more. It was taking years to straighten it all up, like, you know.
So yeah, but from a personal point of view, I mean, Polaris is expanding next year, so we can't say anything yet because it's not publicly announced yet. But Polaris is changing next year. There's big changes to the show, the dynamic of the show, how many events we're doing. So next year, personally, needs to have a lot more attention on that side of the business on Polaris, because big things are happening there. So it's but that's why we're lucky we got an exec team. We got a full management team. So we're still there every day. You know, I still have a hand in every product, really. You know, but from a day-to-day point of view, Polaris will be a huge focus then.
We'll go 3 times a week, catch up with Ty and board meetings and meetings. If we all need to be in the same room, we're going to make decisions together. But day-to-day, well,
I think we've covered a massive amount here, haven't we? You know,
Cheers,
I just want to again say thank you, boys, for the support. You know, not just to my team, nationwide, European-wide, worldwide. You know, you've been absolute godsend for the community, boys, and we'll always be in your debt, and you know we'll always be your biggest supporters. So is there anything you want to
Cheers.
finish on?
Happy with that, yeah.
Thank you
Cheers,
guys.
thanks,
for
thanks,
supporting
guys.
us as a brand.
Awesome.
Without you guys as customers and friends, we wouldn't have a brand. So thank you guys. It's very reciprocal.
Anyone watching, they've got the website, just
TatamiFightwear.com, that's it, yeah.
You know, we can confirm.
Show 20% off.
That's the one.
Buy ticket. Buy
Show
tickets
20
for
and
Helena.
you get your
Yeah,
discount
buy
as well.
tickets for the
And
main
Polaris,
Polaris.
June 28th.
Anything you want to plug before we wrap it up?
Just Polaris, June 28th is all.
So that's
So
June 28th, guys. Online
Swansea.
sales.
online sales,
Swansea, so you can have
yeah,
a good
Swansea
Welsh
Arena.
for it.
Get down there and support. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Really
Cheers,
enjoyed
lads.
that.